And welcome into the New England Hockey Journal's RinkWise podcast. I'm your host, Evan Marinoff, joined today by Patrick Donnelly, the great Patrick Donnelly. It's just us today, Pat. Now, basketball guys are gone. They are not here.
Get them out of here.
Us hockey guys can finally just be ourselves, talk about our things, go in depth, not sound like we're speaking a different language to other people. Pat, what's going on?
Not much. It's recruiting season. You and I, we had the hats out on the table. We made our decisions. I got the Boston University hat. You got the UMass hat. You know, biggest signings of recruiting season so far, I think.
Big. I wish other outlets would have covered it. They didn't want to. It was contentious, and we made our choices. We decided not to go to the same school. So that's what it is. No, Pete, for people who don't know, Pat went to BU. I went to UMass. So we're repping our alma mater in this episode, and mainly because my hair looks crappy. It's early in the morning, so I'm wearing a hat. But it is funny, Pat, like it's recruiting season. Fall hockey starts, like we're recording this Thursday, August 21st. Fall hockey starts next week, which like
hate it.
Oh, summer flies. Like I know that's cliche. It's like opening a podcast talking about the weather, but like summer flew. And you had a very eventful summer going to Ireland, but it's over. Summer's done. And I assume a lot of our listeners, our parents or kids who are about to go back to school, it's a depressing time of year.
Yeah. I mean, I remember like you think about this, like you're in school, you're like, oh, well, I guess, you know, when I get out of school, summer technically still extends into September. I get the weekends and stuff. No, it still feels the same. Still feels like it's over. And yeah, like you get like when you're like us, you got vacations planned, you got like work trips planned, and it's like, all right, month of July was a wash.
Yep, select camp for me.
Yep. And now we're back, and now it's over.
It's done. I always say July 4th, end of summer. Once July 4th hits, it's like July 4th is the top of the roller coaster, and then after that, you're just going down. Like it like that. I know it's cliche, but it's true. Like it flies by.
The back to school sales start, and then it's officially over.
The ads,
Halloween and then sales are already out.
Yeah,
Had Smart the other day. Halloween stuff out.
What's the store that pops up? The Halloween City or something?
Spirit Halloween.
Spirit Halloween. Those are already popping up. Which is like I don't even know what's the business model behind Spirit Halloween? How do you make money? Who's paying for this? I've never understood that. But yeah, it's the end of summer. But August was all about recruiting. College hockey recruiting was in full swing. And I got to say, Pat, a little quieter than usual. A little quieter. August 1, it was a Friday. I sat down. I'm like, all right, ready for the incoming recruits, incoming commits. Wasn't as many as years past, even nationally. Like, it was not a heck of a lot. And I did the numbers. I have them somewhere in my takeaway story from the first 3 days of recruiting. And it was much less. Like and I, again, I wrote about this in the week before about the CHO ruling and how it could impact recruiting. And I think it kind of did. I think it definitely did.
Yeah. Because if you go down our tracker here, August 1st felt like last year, maybe double, maybe even triple the names. And there are still some big names, at least locally, that committed. You got Caden Pellegrino, Providence College, Will Manchuso, Dartmouth, Brian McFadden, Northeastern, David Bosco, Harvard, Noah Severlis, Northeastern, and then you just kind of keep, and that's a handful of notables from August 1st. Felt like last year there was maybe double that amount.
There was, and I think that's the big thing in that I think kids are waiting, and I think schools are waiting too. This is something I'm consistently hearing where it's like with the CHL ruling and with CHL players now being available, kids from Canada being available to commit, they don't want to use up all their chips. And I think for kids, it's like, I don't want to commit somewhere where I am going to be, where I could lose my roster spot. Like if I'm committed August 1, all right, that school moves on from me. So, all right, we got Evan Marinovsky. We've got Patrick Donnelly. Now we can try to commit other kids. We know they're safe. And I think one thing I've heard from parents, agents, some even kids, like, man, I wish I just waited longer. I wish I made the school want me more as time went along. And I think that you're seeing that. You saw that. Another thing I think we saw, Pat, is players seem to be Wow, I can't speak today. It seems like players.
Polyurethane
It's a polyurethane for those who listen to the James
or
Freeman
ethylene, I guess.
read. Yeah. Um, to me, it seemed like players were being more realistic in committing this time around. I mean, I think you look at Noah Servilis and Brian McFadden going to Northeastern. Those are two kids that in past years would have likely been, or I don't know if likely is the word, but would have been more BU or BC recruits. Though they have that aura to them. Noah Servilis is a high-end offensive winger, top 6 guy. Brian McFadden's 6'5", high-end offense, like unicorn type right shot defenseman. Those to me would have seemed like those kinds of guys. David Bosco going to Harvard. David Bosco feels to me like a BC or a BU commit years ago. And my point is, I don't know if these players did it intentionally, but to me, they looked like they were going for more realistic options where it's like, Brian McFadden, Noah Servilis, I'm going to play at Northeastern. I'm going to have roster spots when I get there, and I'm going to make an impact as a freshman when I get to Northeastern. David Bosco, I'm going to make an impact at Harvard. I know that Harvard's not bringing in CHL kids or bringing in transfers because they can't. So I know that when I come in as a freshman, I'm going to have a roster spot. And that's no disrespect to BC or BU. It's just the way that the recruiting world is working. BC and BU have less commits this year. Harvard even has less commits than they did last August 1. So to me, it's players being more realistic. Look at Will Manchuso. Will Manchuso could play in Hockey East. I think the world of Will Manchuso. Picks Dartmouth, and we'll get to Dartmouth in a bit. He's going to be a star at Dartmouth. So I think that's the thing where you're seeing players be more, at least to me, it feels like they're being more realistic with where they're committing and understanding that, with the ever-changing landscape, go with the team who wants you the most. Go with the team who, go with the spot where you think you're going to play. Because, and one thing I've heard from coaches and agents is like, kids don't necessarily, and especially with the transfer portal, kids don't necessarily want to be at a certain school. They want to be in a certain conference. So if you can get in Hockey East any possible way, well, if you're playing BC, BU, Northeastern, whatever, like UMass too, you're still getting better because you're playing those teams. So I think you're seeing that with this recruiting class.
Yeah, and that kind of goes hand in hand with the story you had coming out of, the coaches survey for boys prep, where our players being more realistic, and it was kind of a mixed bag in that story. It felt like the majority was yes, where it was a little more realistic. It's kind of, like you said, you want to find a place where you want to make them want you more, go where you're wanted, and it feels like that might be a little easier to decipher these days. I'm not going through it. I don't know. BU didn't call me up on the phone, give me this hat, and be like, "Hey, we want you." But kind of like what you were saying, where there's so many different options, and if you're waiting and you keep in contact with that school and they're really pushing for you, then you feel wanted. But then you also had the other end where there was a handful in your story where kind of doesn't like it's either the flip side of D3 schools kind of still being overlooked, or not realizing how hard it is to land that commitment, or playing D1, all this and that. But feels like the vast majority of answers in that story was yes, it is becoming more realistic out there.
Yeah, coaches were certainly critical of parents in that story. I got a kick out of some of those answers. I agree. I think from the Division I perspective, yes. And it's easier to be realistic when it's like, do I go to BC or do I go to Northeastern? Like that's those schools are right here. Like it's not they are close. It's more difficult when your dreams to play Division I hockey, and it becomes more realistic that I'm a NESCAC kid and I'm going to play Division III, and that's awesome. But I think getting kids' minds around that is hard, especially with the changing landscape of like Division III players now have to go through junior hockey. That's not easy. It's a hard pill to swallow. It's like, I'm going to go through junior. I want to play Division I. So I think you are seeing that, and at the Division I level, yeah, I think you are seeing kids be a little more realistic from that sense. BU and BC still had commits. We'll get to those in a bit. But yeah, I mean, I think it was a different kind of August 1, and I'm very curious to see 2, 3, 4 years down the line, Servilis, McFadden, Manchuso, Bosco, like those kinds of guys, where like, what are they doing for their colleges? I assume they keep their commitments. I have no doubt that they will. So it'll be interesting to see as we track these years.
Well, any other thoughts before on the overall landscape before we get into those commits at those blue bloods, like you said?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I we'll get to each school or at least the notable ones. So I don't have any that's my one. I'll probably get crap for being like, you think Northeastern is less than like BCBU, and I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like you're going where you can potentially play. That's a good idea. Go where you can be the guy. I like that idea. That's a good thing. I'm commending you guys.
Yeah. Well, speaking of those commits, we'll start at BC. Couple of big ones: Jake Buganicki, Finn Sears, handful of others. What do you think of BC so far?
Yeah, those are the only two. Since August 1, since this summer, those are the two. It's Finn Sears and it's Jake Buganicki, two local kids. Yeah, I mean that's if you're gonna maximize it. Start with Buganicki. From what I understand, it was down to BC and BU, and he chose BC. I think he fits in, and he's a guy that BC fans should be excited for. 6'2", good size, right shot defenseman. You and I have talked about him before. In baseball's been a big part of his life for a long time, and now hockey is the full-time focus. So what is he going to be when hockey gets the full amount of attention that he's going to need to give it? Should get a lot better, even better at the national program. So he's someone that has high upside. People are really excited about him. I think it's a good get by BC. And then Finn Sears, for a long time, people said, oh, he'll just go to BU, right? He'll follow Pandolfo and Meyer, and they'll continue to be a trio at BU. We'll see what happens over the next 2 years. But look, I mean, Finn Sears has always been a BC kid. That was his favorite team growing up. Had family members go to BC. So it's not a huge shock. And from the people I talked to, like it was BC. Like it was not a huge, like it wasn't all BC, BU. We wasn't sitting there like galaxy braining it like, oh my God, what am I going to do? It was BC. So, a good get by them, high-end winger. It's going to be really interesting to see what he does at the national program, how he adapts as a U17 and then what he does as a U18 year. Again, with those Three Rivers kids, Meyer, Pandolfo, and Sears, they did well against older kids in prep. Now they're going to have to do well against a higher caliber of older kids at the national program, but they still have had success against older players where a lot of these kids coming to the program haven't. It's been playing against their age group. So, Sears in particular, does he stay and play? Does he play with Meyer and Pandolfo? Does Greg Moore have those three play together? Or, Sears is probably going to be in different parts of the lineup, and how does he produce with other line mates? So that'll be very interesting to see. But yeah, two good gets by BC, and we'll see if they do anything else. I mean, there's still some, outstanding names still on the board. Rocco Pelosi, Braden Scuderi, two Mount kids are still uncommitted. Pelosi would be a very good get for them. So we'll see what happens over the next couple weeks and months.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned just playing up to the older players and excelling there. And one of the things you've talked about is that first year at the national program, that U17 year, it's tough. You don't see the numbers that you see the following year or the year before. So I think like if those three in particular do well, or especially someone like Sears or Meyer and Pandolfo, Sears and Meyer have shown like the higher offensive ceiling so far. And if they do that year one, you're looking at some serious prospects for the following year.
They are, and those if they are the two highest producers on that U17 team, I can guarantee you that next year when they do 2027 NHL draft names to watch in the summer, those two are going to be near the top of that list. So, and same with Pandolfo, if that's the case. Yeah. So, I mean, I agree with you. I think it's a good get by BC. I mean, I think for years, a lot of outsiders thought, oh, BU is just going to get those three. And it's nothing BU did. Sears just a BC kid. Like, there's nothing you can do. Sorry, Pat. So it's just the way it goes. And for BC to get one of those is certainly a good thing for them.
Well, speaking of BU, we've already touched on two of them. Excuse me. Carter Meyer, Freddie Meyer, Sam Pandolfo. I'm sure they were really worried about getting those ones. And James Scantlebury, another notable one. Thoughts on BU?
Scantlebury's a big one. He's someone that a lot of people are after, highly sought after recruit, high end recruit. Going to tendered with the Chicago Steel this coming year. I believe the same. I think it was Quebec that drafted Carter Meyer at the end of the first round in the queue. Also drafted Scantlebury, even though he had tendered with Chicago, because they're like, hey, let's swing for the fences here. Scantlebury's high end, high expectations, a good forward. I have not watched nearly as much of him as I have the two Meyer brothers and Pandolfo and Sears and a lot of these other local kids. Scantlebury's from up in, I believe, Canada. So, but that's a big get. Everyone says that's a big get, and I'm going to trust people's word on that. The other three, yeah, not a huge surprise. The funny part is I will give all of those kids credit. Carter Meyer, Finn Sears, Sam Pandolfo. We kind of knew where they were going to go. They had some kick-ass commitment videos. Got to give them credit. Credit where credit's due.
The Moneyball music with Pandolfo's.
That's pretty damn good. Like anything with the Moneyball soundtrack, I'm going to give a 10 out of 10. I got to give Finn Sears credit. Bubba O'Reilly was the song on his. Like, that's one of my favorite songs. And I'm like, okay, all right. I'm glad a kid born 10 years after me still likes Bubba O'Reilly. That's awesome. I'm glad they like The Who. So cool videos. I mean, I think now, like, the thing is, like, if you have kids, we gotta video the kids learning how to skate. We have to do that. We have to put them, my future kids, I'm going to put in like UMass gear, but then like also have like BU gear, BC gear, every kind of school gear, film them skating. And then when they commit to one of those schools, I'll be like, yep, see, they were a St. Lawrence fan their whole life. They were all about, they were all about Dartmouth. Oh, they were. And obviously that's not what those kids did, but I think it's a good idea, Pat. I think parents who have younger kids, maybe it's time to start putting them in different college years. So you have the video for when they commit down the road. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, Dad was a huge UMass fan, but I just wanted to do something different. I just picked St. Lawrence when I was little. I like their uniforms.
Well, my dad went to St. Lawrence, so I always I have a St. Lawrence jersey at home actually. So my future kid, that's in house.
There you go.
I can put them in that. But in all seriousness, Freddie Meyer commits to BU the day before Carter does. I think this is a good get for BU. I think Freddie still has, obviously ways to go in his development, doing really well. I hear up at his camp in the queue. So it'll be interesting to see if he stays. The thought is he's going to come back and play for Rivers, but if he continues to play as well as he is, who knows? But a good get for BU. He's only been a defenseman for less than 2 years. Plays way bigger than he is. So I'm curious to sort of see how he develops over the next couple of years. And then, yeah, like Carter is I think the top 09 in the United States. It's not a surprise BU got him, but like, there's your next star. There's your next big draft pick. So again, no surprise to see Carter pick BU. It's a real get for them. And again, like he's going to come in as a freshman and be impactful. I don't think there's going to be any shock with that. And then you have Sam. It's funny. Like I saw someone reply like, oh, nepotism in hockey. Oh, it's always everywhere. This ain't nepotism. There is nepotism in some corners of hockey. Sam Pandolfo committing to BU is not really nepotism at all. It isn't. No chance. Sam Pandolfo is really good and has a really high ceiling. 6'4" forward. I think of all three of those Rivers kids going to the national program, I'm the most fascinated with him. What does he become over the next 2 years? What do they morph him into? What track is he on going into BU? Is he a good, reliable 200-foot forward who you can plug anywhere in the lineup? Or is he someone who realizes his offensive potential, it starts to come through, and he's like, you got to put him in the top 6. Like, this is an impactful size left shot, left wing. It'll be interesting to see, but still a good get for BU. Obviously, that story is going to be the Freep is going to be writing that story a lot when he shows up at BU freshman year in a couple of years. So good for BU getting those kids. Not a huge surprise, but still a good haul.
Yeah, and like you said, he's super interesting just because like you see 6'4", and then you see the tools, you see the vision, the passing. He's already got the 200-foot game. Apple didn't fall far from the tree.
No, it didn't.
So it's like you said, what more is there to unlock there? And like again, like you said, or like we said, we see the tools in the frame, and it feels like there's a lot more to unlock there.
There is, and I think that's the one thing with him, getting more physical, getting stronger. Once those come in, once he really realizes that, I think he's going to be a special player. He's someone that like every scout or coach is like, oh, what he's going to be in a couple of years. So it'll be really interesting to see. And again, like it's a great get for BU, man. And it'll be interesting to see if they continue to commit kids over the next couple of years from the 09 class, if they're going after Canadian kids. But we don't know that as of right now.
Yeah. And any others in the Hockey East that caught your eye? Obviously, Northeastern was busy locally.
I like Northeastern's group. So they get Servilis, which I think is a really good get for them. He projects as a top 6 right wing for them. He's doing really well with Moncton right now in their camp. So it'll be interesting to see. The plan was to go back to Dexter, but he's lighting it up. He's lighting it up there in their camp. So that'll be good to track. And then I love Brian McFadden. I think Brian McFadden, I would 100% take. I don't want to say take a chance on him because even if he doesn't realize his full offensive potential, he's still a great shutdown, right shot defenseman, 6'5". You take that every time, but he has great offensive skills. And it's like, that's a really exciting get for a school like Northeastern, what he could be for them. And then I like the Owen McHale commit. Take a chance on Owen. He's a pest. He's someone I would not like. I was a defenseman. He's dumping the puck in my corner. I'm not happy about it. So if that, I've used this phrase 1,000 times today, that offensive potential, if that sort of comes through at all, he's a really impactful power forward in your middle six. That's what he is. And I think that physicality, even if he's not putting up a ton of points, he's still a pain in the ass on the forecheck. He's still a good bottom 6 guy. But at Dexter this year, we'll see with the points. Like if those come through in a higher role, that's a different kind of player, and that's a good get for Northeastern. So I like what Northeastern has done so far. Those are 3 really good local kids to get. Servilis is an NHL draft prospect in 2027 because he's a very late 08. McFadden and McHale, though, are NHL draft eligible next year. I think McFadden's someone, we know this. NHL teams, they see a 6'5" right shot defenseman, and they're like, take my money, take all of it. We're taking him. And then McHale, they like physicality. Matthew Tkachuk is the new, the guy in the NHL everybody wants, Brady Tkachuk. So not saying he's those guys, but he's kind of got the same kind of DNA. So good gets by the Huskies.
Fits the profile of a lot of guys that have come through Northeastern in their kind of beanpot run here and just terrorized those 3 other schools.
Yeah, McHale seems like a kid who someday in the beanpot will put a kid through the glass like Lucic did back in the day and be like, I love Owen McHale, but I'm buying his jersey if it exists. Like he's that type of player.
Hey, it might.
It might with NIL. It might. But so yeah, good gets for Northeastern. No disrespect earlier when I said the thing about players being more realistic. Northeastern's a beanpot school. Let's be real here.
I'll have to go back, clip it, put it everywhere, hang it in the locker room.
Jerry Keefe will be calling me, and no, he will not. He's a very nice guy. I'm kidding, of course.
After we'll touch on one more hockey school, and then we'll move on to, because I know you teased Dartmouth earlier, but Providence, Caden Pellegrino, just had their other Stephen Cover right here. Couple Kurt Beck. What do you think of PC?
Well, the big one was Roger McQueen. How about that?
Oh yeah, I remember I texted you that.
Well, we don't consider it a local commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's big. That's big. I'm very interested in, and this is a whole nother topic. I'm very interested to see what his impact is when he comes to college hockey. Is he a point per game guy? Is he, almost 2 points a game? Is he 1.5 points per game? Is he less than that? Is he less than a point per game? Is Trevor Connolly last year, it was an adjustment. He did not have the year at Providence that I think a lot of people thought he would have. Is McQueen going to be similar? James Hagan's last year was only a point per game guy at BC. So what is McQueen this year? Nevertheless,
what McQueen has going for him is 6'5".
Yes.
And can move.
Very skilled center.
And the question mark is the back, but
the back. But for Providence, I don't think that's going to be a huge issue. This is a guy you're going to have for probably a year, maybe 2. But he helps you. That's That's your first line center. Your top 6 center at the very least. So I like that for them. That's a huge get. The more of those guys come into Hockey East or to the East, the better. I think it also speaks to how good college hockey's getting, where you're getting someone like McQueen. You're seeing this, Gavin McKenna, other guys like that. Porter Martone going to Michigan State. Like, this is the thing you're going to see. And this is why these guys are coming in. Players do need to be more realistic with where they're picking, because your higher end schools, Providence is one of those higher end schools, going to take guys like that. So it's something to consider. But the locally, yeah, Pellegrino was the first. That's not a huge surprise. Nate Lehman coached his youth hockey team growing up. So not a huge shock. He's not a typical Providence College player. Providence College, you know this, Pat, from years of covering Hockey East. Bigger guys, harder to play against, winning 2-1 games. That's Providence. Pellegrino's a very skilled, not a big forward, but center, but great vision, elite vision. Again, elite skill. I'm very curious to see what Providence does with a kid like that when he gets there, and how they develop him and where he fits in their lineup, because he's a top 6 player. So I think he kind of adds some more skill than they've had in years past. I love the Stephen Cover commitment. I think that's a perfect get. I thought he was so underrated at Mount. Mount had that. He was on a stacked 09 team at Mount. I mean, you had Pelosi, Scuderi, Gualberto, Willis, Semetsis, Berard. There are guys I'm still forgetting, Chiswick in net. Like, there were a lot of guys to focus on. Cover rightfully got tendered in the USHL. Like, really good score. You put him with a great center, he is going to produce. I mean, he's going to produce anyway, but like, he's going to finish a lot of your passes. Reminds me of like a Morgan Geekie. Like, that's the kind of player he is. So I like that for Providence. Put him with Pellegrino, you're cooking. But I really do like that get for Providence. And then Kurt Beck. Kurt Beck is tearing it up in the queue right now, up in training camp. So I think, he might be staying. We'll see what happens. I believe it's Sherbrooke that he's with. Forgive me if I'm misspeaking. The teams are all jumbled. I went through that whole story the other day, Pat, of like where kids are playing. It took me forever. A, I can't speak French. Sorry, can't do it. And B, it's always changing. Like, kids are leaving, kids are going. So I believe he's with Sherbrooke. He's been really good in camp from everything that I've seen, read, and heard. But again, like, he's got upside. He's got upside. At the very least, he's a stout defenseman with some puck moving abilities. At the most, he's a really good two-way guy. And I think that's where Kurt Beck is trending. I think that was it. Oh, Jackson Pisani, not a local kid, but he's the son of former NHLer Fernando Pisani. Fernando went to Providence, so not a surprise that the son went to Providence as well. So I think that's it for Providence. Yeah.
And you teased Dartmouth earlier, and that kind of caught my attention with Will Manchuso. What are your thoughts on Dartmouth?
I like the direction Dartmouth seems to be going, and the direction they're going is, we're going to take high-end prep kids who your beanpot schools might wait a little bit to commit, where they might say, we want him in a couple of years, or we're going to wait and see, on player X. Dartmouth's saying, no, we're taking those guys. Like, we want those guys. We want high-end prep kids, and they're realizing that they have a pipeline. I mean, you look at in years past, like Graydon Robertson Palmer 2 years ago, he's now a 7th-round pick of the Detroit Red Wings. They have Stefano Petrantonio from Kent. Jake Tavares was last year. Evan Jones, Indiana Grossbard was last year. Over the winter, they committed Mason St. Louis, who 53 points in his first year at Brunswick. He's going to be a potential prep player of the year this upcoming season. So getting those guys seems to be working, and they did more of it this year. Commit Alex Theodore. He's got size, good size left winger from Phillips Andover. He's got upside. They got Rowan Sang, which I think is a steal for them. Rowan Sang had a really good Select 17 camp. And he's a really good player for KUA. And then Will Manchuso. Like, I think Will Manchuso is a potential NHL draft pick this coming year if things go right at St. Mark's. And for him, it's going to be consistent production at St. Mark's. That's the big thing, consistently being it. I thought he was the best 08 forward at the Mass Festival. Thought he was that good. So getting him, he's a phenomenal skater. He's got good skill, compete, offensive production. Like if he can put up like over 50 points this year, I think he's a real contender to get picked in the draft. And again, we know how NHL teams look at prep talent straight out of prep. Like you got to have an intangible. You got to have something that others don't. He seems to kind of have it, seems to have a lot of it. I think it's just, if you can do that consistently, I think he's someone that NHL teams will have to pick. But again, a great get for Dartmouth because him and Rowan Sang, and if things continue, Alex Theodore should be impact guys for them down the road. But my eyes really are Mancuso and Sang. Those are two really, really good gets for a school like Dartmouth.
Do you think that's kind of just a path that, like, you know, because like we've talked about it, like, you know, Harvard doesn't use the transfer portal, at least, you know, from what we can tell. And, you know, Dartmouth hasn't seemed to, Yale hasn't seemed to, Cornell does a little bit, but you get Harvard getting a high-end prep kid like David Bosco, who, like you said,
or Miles Brosnan.
Yes, who maybe a year or two ago might have been a BU or BC. You know, you never know. But feels like that might be a trend.
Yeah, I think Dartmouth has realized, and I don't know this for a fact, I haven't talked to them about this, but I think Dartmouth has figured out that, you know, we can pick up slack that maybe we couldn't have picked up years ago. Like we can tap into that, tap into a market that is sort of at a weird spot where, you know, I think, you know, your Carter Myers and your Finn Searses are high-end young. Like they are, can't miss. Those are easy to commit. It's that next tier of like, and I don't know, like next tier is not the right word, but like your Bosco, your Servilises, they're really good. They're not, you know, they are NTDP camp invites. Maybe don't make the team, but they're right around there where you're, you know, maybe your BCs and BUs are kind of looking and going, I don't know. Well, let's wait a little bit. Let's see. Let's wait and see. Whereas your Harvards, and Harvard's right in there. I mean, Harvard commits NTDP kids all the time. Harvard might be the wrong school, but a place like Dartmouth looks at a kid like Mancuso and says, yes, you're going to play here. You get a Dartmouth education. We're going to develop you, all these different things. How do you say no to that? And I think again, it goes back to the same thing with Servilis and McFadden at Northeastern and Brosnan and Bosco at Harvard. Like, yeah, like I'm in. And I think we haven't even really talked about Miles Brosnan at Harvard. That's a phenomenal get for them. Another Dexter kid chooses Harvard. I don't know. Is there a connection or something? I don't know how that always seems to happen. But again, like Brosnan's another NHL draft prospect for this upcoming year, should be back in prep. So again, like high-end two-way defenseman, 6'1", has the tools, great skater, like has it. So again, like good get for Harvard, but yeah, back to Dartmouth. I think Dartmouth has tapped into that. And I think that's a good thing for them. And we'll see the fruits of that. Like when Robertson, Palmer, and this whole, you know, Jones and Grossbart and Tavares, when they start to arrive and we see the impact they make, we can judge whether or not it was a good move or a bad move. But for right now, I can say it looks like a really good move.
Yeah. Any other takeaways, notable schools, notable commits you want to touch on before we flip to the girls' side?
Yeah, I want to give props to my alma mater, UMass. They got Parker Stockseth. I love Parker Stockseth. I think he's a phenomenal goalie. I thought he was eligible to commit last year. Maybe he wasn't, but I thought he was. So I think that's why he was on my list last year and not this year. Commits to UMass. That's a great get for them. They don't usually do local kids, but that's an awesome one for them. Stockseth has been awesome at SPA the last couple of years. Joe Covaluzzi to Maine. Good get for Maine. Local kid. Covaluzzi, big goal scorer for Cushing last year. It's going to be interesting to see how he develops this coming year in year two. Notre Dame actually did pretty well with kids who played locally. They got Nate Chiswick in net, who was probably the top 09 recruit to pick up. And then they also got George Komodowski, who's 6'3", 200 pounds. I saw him at Select 17 Camp Pat. He was at Mounts. I think he was with Mount 16 team this past year. Moose. Huge kid. I mean, he's a force. So good get for Notre Dame, picking from them. Also want to give props to Declan Watton going to Cornell, local kid. Cornell is very good at picking impact guys, and they did it again with that one. And then UNH has been quietly active, just not fully with local kids. Their one local kid was Cole Saborin. Saborin, I've always thought high end, kind of undersized right wing. And undersized, I think he's 5'8". But again, or 5'10", excuse me. He's not undersized. I'm 5'10", and I'm not undersized. So I take that back. Cole Saborin, not undersized, but a good get for UNH for sure with that. So, and then Quinnipiac got Tyler Rockus, who's been a defenseman who's sort of dealt with the injury bug the last year, but, you know, high-end potential, going to Salisbury this year after being at Hotchkiss. So Salisbury is pretty good at developing guys. So Rockus, good get for QU.
Yeah, I think we covered it all in boys.
I think we hit most. Yeah, I think we hit most everybody. I don't think we forgot anyone. I hope we didn't. And now we go to the girls. We go to the girls' side. So the girls are a little different. Girls started June 15th, essentially.
Yes.
But two big ones came in early August with Annabelle Lovell and Maggie Averill, and you wrote about it.
Yeah, those were obviously, like you said, two big ones, and it's really interesting because you and I talked about it just kind of generally in Slack, and you know how much more activity there's been with the 09s this year than there was with the 08s last year, at least early. Because like I remember like last year we didn't have really enough 08s, you know, in our spreadsheet to make it worth putting the database out there until like November. And this year we have, I think, doubled that, and it was up in early August. So
complete opposite on my end.
Yeah. So something we're monitoring. Like we don't like it could just be coincidental, could just be, you know, class sizes, all this and that. But yeah, Annabelle Lovell to Minnesota and Maggie Averill to Princeton, two of the biggest ones from around the region. And it's really interesting to see how active the kind of the Big Ten has been for I don't want to say local, for players that play locally. Like you got China Taylor, who went to Wisconsin, Auburn, other level kids. Auburn Monter went to Penn State. Sydney Stoughton went to Minnesota as well. She and Annabelle Lovell have been line mates a lot when Lovell's played forward. And, you know, kind of a can't miss prospect, you know, with her versatility on forward and defense, her skating ability, her vision, 158 points in 83 games. It's pretty good. Pretty good.
Can't hate that.
You know, the thing that kind of sticks out is maybe a little undersized, 5'3". She's listed at, so not anything, not tiny by any means, but you know, because it hasn't, like, it doesn't really seem to set her back as far as like compete and holding her own defensively. But yeah, she's a slippery player, really fast, high end tools. So that's one there, and then kind of the opposite side of the spectrum is you got Maggie Averill, who's 5'11", 6 feet ish, going to Princeton, following Caroline's footsteps. Her older sister is committed to Princeton. It's another one Princeton got from around here. Lily Bromley from Nobles also went there. So Princeton's got a pretty good class, and you know the Ivies are always active around here. Yeah, Averill is at over, I think, at least 10 goals in her first two seasons at Andover. She had 22 points this year as a sophomore. Again, like loud tools at the offensive blue line, just cannon of a shot, unafraid to jump into the play. I think her defensive game came along a lot this year, using her size more effectively and bringing up, you know, high compete a little more consistently, and stand out with Assabet. You know, both she and Lovell played well at U18 Festival. Both made the U18 series roster. Both had been on, you know, U18 Women's Worlds teams. That's kind of your barometer. It's like we talked about on the basketball side. There's no NTDP on the girls' side, so your parameter is kind of, you know, who's on that U18 Women's Worlds team.
Yeah, and I'm curious, like you mentioned trends, like more 09s have committed, at least locally, than 08s. But I find it interesting on the girls, because on the boys' side, you don't really see kids committing to Big Ten schools around here, who grew up around here. You know, your kids who go to Mount for 2 years, that's different. But on the girls' side, that's the kind of the goal. Like outside of Yale or Princeton or like some ECAC schools, it's the Big Ten. And do you have any ideas to why?
I think it's just their profiles as players. Like on the women's side, like the Big Ten schools, like your Minnesotas, your Wisconsins, your Ohio State, even Penn State. The last few years, Minnesota, Duluth, and St. Cloud are kind of, Minnesota, Duluth's usually up there. St. Cloud State's kind of, I don't know if we're getting into the weeds here on, not Big Ten. It's kind of like, all
Well,
of
those schools,
but,
Duluth,
those
yeah, I know what you
um,
mean.
Midwest schools, I should say. I think it's just fitting the profiles more because, you've seen those schools dip into the pool locally and maybe they haven't played locally, like an Emma Cerruti who's committed to Wisconsin. She's at Shattuck St. Mary's, but she has that really, elite high-end profile, and that's why she's at a Shattuck. And I'm not saying it's why she's not at a prep school. It's not like that. It's just kind of China Taylor sort of has that, like, it's I don't know, we've talked about this before. It's almost like a it when you see it type of thing. Like that's a Big Ten player.
It's a different level. That's right. Like it's better.
Yeah. And I mean, I should know this better. I've been out of women's college hockey for a little bit, at least as far as covering it. But it's not even. It's so. I apologize for misspeaking. On the women's side, they're not Big Ten. They're WCHA. So that's when you got into. That's what I confused myself with Minnesota, Duluth, and St. Cloud State. But it's a lot of those same Big Ten schools you see on the boys' side: Minnesota, Ohio State, Wisconsin, blah blah blah. Yeah, it's where you want to play for women's college hockey. They're the ones that are winning the national championships. You see BU made the tournament this year, first time in, I don't know, 10 years, something like that. And they drew one of those WCHA schools, and tournament's over pretty quickly for you. And that was the case with, even Northeastern. Northeastern made some runs in the tournament, but couldn't get over that hump against the WCHA schools. And Northeastern's been the standard around here for women's college hockey. It's been them, Yale, Princeton, BC, BU maybe a little while ago. Now BU seems to be on the upswing again. But they're not the schools that are winning the national championships. It's the WCHA schools.
Yeah, it certainly is. And you look at the other 09s that have been committing around here. Who else? Because I'm looking through our database, which is up 35 kids already. Holy God!
So when I go to update it next, we will be at 45.
That's wild. And I will say, for those who are listening, for boys, 09 database is coming. There just aren't quite enough yet. And then I do need to go out and update the 07s and the 08s. I'm not the best at updating that, but they will be updated soon. What other commitments caught your attention the last 2 months?
Yeah, I mentioned Lily Bromley going to Princeton. She's kind of in that Owen McHale boat where it's a lot of fun to watch her play, like bull in a china shop. I think like the offense has already shown through some early seasons at Nobles. She had a really good camp at U18 Festival. She committed before that, I think. But yeah, that's one right there. Mia Daly from Williston going to Yale. I mean, we've talked about her plenty. We've written about her plenty. I think is going to be in for a big junior year at Williston since, Violet Carroll isn't there anymore. Nora Curtis isn't there anymore. Not to sound like Rick Pitino, like Larry Bird's not walking through that door. But, she is going to be one of the go-tos now. And, she already was with the go-to, but, now the go-to in that top six. And same thing with Brooke Schlutter, who's going to Cornell. It's a good get for them. She had an awesome year last year, a good breakout season for her. Couple Exeter ones to note. Paisley Meyer going to Yale as well. She's been a fixture on that top line, with Maria Gray and Erin Sears. Sears committed recently as well. She's an 08. She's going to Northeastern, kind of in that, Northeastern's been active too. Handful of, what's really been interesting is how active a lot of like BUs and UConns have been with like Canadian players and players up in Ontario in the OWHL on that at the U22 level. BU's got a handful of that, and obviously Tara Watchorn's from Ontario. probably it's probably easy to find connections up there. Some other notables from prep, I mentioned Sydney Stoughton of Minnesota, just a really detailed player. She's big. I think she's 5'9", maybe 5'8" in that frame. Doesn't have blow you away type of speed, but does everything well. And whenever I've seen Level Academy play, it's like making a winning play. That type of player. Sophia Lynn from Choate getting to Harvard. She's pretty smooth on defense, really smooth skater. I've seen her mainly with the Connecticut Polar Bears in club hockey, fall and spring. Really good play driver in transition. And that kind of just running down the list here of
I know, I'm looking at it too. Mia Daly, Yale. We mentioned that?
Mentioned China Taylor to Wisconsin. You can see what else we have written about.
Here come the angry emails. Oh boy,
here come the Brown's been active. Shout out to Brown. Olivia Austin, they already had her sister Kira Austin, 2 standouts at Deerfield. 2 players I would circle in that Deerfield roster to have big years. Kate Clance at BB&N, similar boat. A lot of BB&N lost a lot of experience and leadership last year. A lot of that's going to fall on that junior class going into senior or sophomore going into junior classes shoulders, whether it's a Kate Lance or a Nika Singh, who I believe is also already a Brown commit. Brooke Bartlett from Rivers to Harvard. Rivers is, we'll have plenty of time to unpack these prep teams, in the fall and as we get into the winter. But Rivers I think is going to be a lot of fun this year. Really young team, really high end skilled. Brooke Bartlett's a big piece of that. Fun center to watch. She had a career year last year. And then, like I said, Hockey East has been active in the 09s, especially up in Canada. BU getting, Sydney Bonus, Eve Ouellette. You got Providence also active. A couple others. ECAC has been like similar way as the WCHA schools with your Annabelle Level, Sydney Stoughton, and China Taylor. You've got some ECAC teams adding some level standouts as well. Clarkson is another one of those blue bloods. Faith Barada, she can fly. 53 points on defense last year. Teresa Gildanova, hope I said that right. Check forward going to Cornell. She was, I think, second or top 3 in scoring for level last year, 122 points. Another one of those high-end skill players. And it's kind of it, running down the list here. A couple prep notables, Jamie Noonan out of Groton going to Stonehill. Mackenzie Sutherland from Dexter, Stonehill committed her. Alexine Beaulieu from Loomis to RPI. Assumption had a handful. Janie Martin from Middlesex has had a really productive couple seasons here. I think we covered a lot of them.
Yeah, you hit every single one of them. That was great. It's interesting. I mean, I think, on both sides, you see these sort of trends, and those are trends that we'll continue to follow and to write about. I know we've touched everything on the boys' side, and I'm assuming we've hit on everything with the girls' recruiting side. So before we go, we must bring in our great producer, David Yaz, for overtime.
Overtime.
Welcome back to Overtime, where I lob 3 questions the way of these 2 gentlemen, try to confuse them and entertain the audience. That's how it works. It's that kind of relationship. Anyway,
stupid.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point. All right, here we go. Pretty simple, sort of hockey nostalgia questions today, I guess. Evan, we'll start with you. What's the first hockey game you remember watching?
Ooh, probably I don't know if it's the first one I remember watching, but the first one I remember going to. First Bruins game, Bruins Oilers, February 13th, 2007, which is before some of the kids we've covered were born, which is like really bizarre. It was Hail to the Chief night. It was Busick night on my birthday, and they won 3-0. We sat like 3 rows from the glass, got to witness a fight right in front of me. All the goals were scored on my side. So that was a searing memory of just like, hell yeah, it was. I was in.
When you saw the fight, were you alarmed at all or disturbed as a kid, or it just helped develop your bloodthirsty, vicious hockey brain?
Loved it.
Loved it.
Loved it. Couldn't get enough. So I wish there were more that night.
Cool. Pat, your thoughts. First hockey game you remember watching?
First I remember watching, I don't know if there are any before. I mean, there was obviously like, the cup run games for the Bruins in 2011. That was like, when I really first started watching. But the one I remember most vividly was my first Bruins game in person, which was in that, it was in like 2012. It was against the Penguins. 2-1 loss, really frustrating loss. They had like a 5-on-3 that like, I remember some of the disappointments. Full 5-on-3, almost, I think, for the full 2 minutes. Nothing happens there. I think Joe Corvo scored the only goal for the Bruins.
Joe Corvo,
that's like a bar trivia question right there. And then that was the game. Like, I think Brooks Orpik like hip checked Danny Payet at center ice, and Payet went flying. There was a whole scuttle about that. That was a fun one. I remember. I remember like seeing that hit like just as it happened, and it's like you see it in all these montages now of like biggest NHL hits, and I was like, yeah, I was there. I was Loge 11 or wherever I was.
You guys both like violence. I like that. That's good.
Yeah.
Good one though, Pat. Good one. All right. Question number 2, Pat. You can begin with this one. What's your most memorable occasion of makeshift hockey? And by makeshift hockey, I mean you hockey players will do anything to play hockey. You'll use a tape ball instead of a puck. You'll skate on a frozen puddle. Tell me what you remember about a makeshift hockey situation. Could be street hockey.
Yeah, I think I'd have to go street hockey here. There are obviously like, the games with the tape ball and like the locker room or like, in your buddy's basement and stuff. But I remember like, and it kind of all goes back to like, the summer the Bruins won the cup. But I remember that summer we played street hockey like literally every night. And, street lights on, you can't even see the ball. But like we lived on a cul-de-sac. So just perfect place for street hockey. Like we were all on the rollerblades, like everybody on the street had them. We made a makeshift Stanley Cup, taking like pots, pans, and bowls and like wrapping them in tin foil.
There you go.
Everybody's heated, everybody's emotional, playing forever. That's the one that kind of stands out top of mind.
My favorite makeshift trophy I ever created was for a sort of a rivalry football game we used to play with some buddies. It was called the Scorpion Bowl. So we used a Bud Light 12-pack with some kind of bowl fashioned on top. Anyway, and then we drank out of it later. It was gross. Okay, Evan,
That's awesome.
Makeshift hockey memory.
I have 2. One was I used to have, I don't know why we had them, but we had these sticks where the blades were off. Like the blades had fallen off, but we just kept the full shaft. I don't know why, but they were in our garage. And my cousin and I at like family events, we would take one of the cars out of the garage, or like we'd have a parent take the car out of the garage, and we would take the stick. I don't know if anyone's ever done this before, and play with just the shaft and like a street hockey puck in the garage, full contact, and try to score on each other. And like it was just one-on-one, like, and it was so fun. And he never played hockey, and I did. And I used to be pissed when he would score because I'm like, I play hockey, shouldn't I be better? And you realize like, no, this isn't really hockey, but it was the makeshift, like, our parents were like, come on guys, like stop. And we'd be hitting each other and stuff. And the other, it's not really makeshift, but my friend had this elite mini hockey setup in his basement, and mini hockey's not makeshift, but what we did was makeshift. We would put bean bags up, and then some areas wouldn't. And we would play full checking fights. And the fights back then, you're just wrestling each other and stuff, but it was so fun. And there'd be holes in the wall. Like you'd run over the goalie. Like if the goalie turned around to try to make a save, you would just like throw them up against the wall. It was great. Like it was truly like being a kid. So I miss those days.
Yeah, we used to play in our basement with laundry baskets turned on their side, like rectangular laundry baskets turned on their side as goals, tape balls. And I checked my brother into the side of the couch once, and he had to get stitches in his head. That was good. Good times. All right. 3rd question, and probably the most critical question I've ever asked you on this podcast. Evan, you go first. What is the smell of hockey, and how would you describe it?
Ooh, that's a great question. It's You know what's interesting to me? I don't know how to exactly describe the smell, but I've always kind of liked it. Like hockey equipment when it's like after a game and it's like it's just full of sweat. Call me insane, call me a freak, whatever. I've always like enjoyed it. It feels like home. I know that's like it sounds dumb, but it's like this like poignant smell that most people hate. But like if you love hockey, you don't even just come to accept it. You're like, oh, I know this. Like this is familiar to me. So I can't put my finger on what exactly it is because people are like, oh, it smells awful. It's like it's like camaraderie. It's a hard day's work. Like that's what hockey smells like.
I was hoping that at least one of you would say yes, the locker room smell or whatever you want to call it. I have similarly, I guess I have this smell that I can remember from summer camp, and it's not a pleasant smell. It's the smell of like someone used ammonia to like clean the bathroom, but you can still smell a little bit of mildew from the towels around and stuff like that. And I just love that smell, even though it's gross. Pat, your thoughts on the smell of hockey?
So I have like two, and the first one is what Evan was saying, and like it's like you said, it's so hard to describe. It's like that, like when you're in the locker room and like the bags are unzipped, and it's just like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have to be after the game, like when it's like all like sweaty and wet and gross, but like just in general, like if you're all like you're just in the locker room, bag like all the bags are in there, all the equipment's in there, it just has that, like it smells the same everywhere.
Right.
And like you get a hint of that like standing at some games and sometimes, and like takes you back. But there's the other one too. It's like almost when you walk into like an empty rink, either like early in the morning or Zamboni just finished and it's like between games. It's like I don't know how to describe it. Maybe it's like just stale, like empty rink smell, but like it's not quite the gear smell either. It's like just the smell of the rink, and it's something like it also smells the same everywhere. And it's like at that, like it's usually like when there's no one in the rink or like nobody's on the ice yet and like there's nothing going on. It's like pretty chill still.
I know that smell.
Yeah, that's more of a crisp smell. It's not also not completely pleasant because it's probably got some chemicals they use to treat the ice or whatever they use to clean up the stadium, but it's a little crisp. Yeah.
By the way, TD Garden has like a specific smell. Like, it's like really, like, I don't know if it's stale food or what it is, but there's like a specific smell to TD Garden that like, especially up in the balcony or like in the press area you get.
Well, there's the specific smell up there, and then there's the specific smell underneath when you're like walking to go like the press conferences or whatever.
Yes.
The old Boston Garden had that smell, but it also had traces of elephant dung from the circus, which was always charming. I like what you said, Pat, because what you both said about the sort of foul locker room smell, hockey bag smell, it's distinct. You could be sitting, on the subway next to some big guy who's got BO, and that's a totally horrible smell, but it's very different than the hockey gym bag smell.
Yeah. I completely agree. Like true body odor is that I'm not like that's bad. Like you're sitting next to someone somewhere and they got BO, like terrible.
Yep.
The hockey odor that emits from bags. I don't know. Most people think it smells awful, but when you grow up in it, it's like it's comfortable. So I don't feel that way. But body odor, I don't want anyone to think like Evan loves the smell of body odor. That is not true. That is a false narrative.
That's the episode title of this pod.
That should be
you've both done very well in overtime. Excellent scratch and sniff version of the RinkWise overtime feature. And back to you guys to tell our audience to smell you later.
The Mr. Sketch markers, the ones you huffed in art class in third grade.
Remember the Smensels?
Yes. Oh my God. We could talk about scents.
Tube.
We could talk about scents forever. The smells we got to smell. But that's where we'll end it. Nice long college hockey recruiting episode. That's Patrick Donnelly. I'm Evan Maranofsky. We will see you at the rink.